she sat in first class with a $600 million deal in her bag, until a racist flight attendant told her, "This seat isn't for people like you." What happened next not only shocked the entire plane, it made headlines across the world and cost the airline everything. Stay with me. This story will leave you speechless. Excuse me, ma'am. This seat is for first-class passengers only. Those words cut through the air, freezing the moment as Danielle Mitchell, the successful tech CEO, settled into seat 1A on flight 708 from New York to Los Angeles. Dressed in a tailored navy blue business suit and carrying a sleek Louis Vuitton laptop bag, Danielle exuded the confidence and professionalism of a high-powered executive. Yet standing above her was a flight attendant who seemed to ignore all of that, ignoring the fact that Danielle was a first-class passenger and treating her with an unsettling lack of respect. The flight attendant, whose name tag read Susan, continued to question Danielle's presence in the luxurious seat, despite her showing the proper first-class ticket without hesitation. "We'll need you to move to economy until we sort this out," Susan stated, her voice carrying enough weight for passengers nearby to overhear, casting Danielle in an uncomfortable spotlight. Confused but calm, Danielle asked, "Is there a problem with my ticket?" She was simply trying to get settled for her flight, but the situation quickly turned from strange to appalling. "It's just protocol, ma'am," Susan said, her tone dismissive. "We have to double-check when there's confusion, especially when seats are reserved for our top-tier guests." What confusion? Danielle had boarded the plane, just as any first-class passenger would, showing the same ticket and following the same procedure. This wasn't about a mix-up. Danielle wasn't in the wrong seat, but the flight attendant's behavior suggested there was something far deeper at play. It was as though Susan was singling her out, treating her differently because of something beyond protocol, something rooted in bias. And in that moment, Danielle realized this wasn't just a minor inconvenience. It was a moment that challenged her dignity. Danielle, who had spent years building her tech company into one of the most successful and forward-thinking firms in the industry, had never felt so humiliated. She had been fighting her entire career against the subtle racism that came with being a black woman in the predominantly white world of Silicon Valley. She had fought against the doubters, the people who didn't believe in her vision, and now here she was, facing a subtle but clear example of the discrimination she'd faced countless times before. This was just another reminder of how, despite all her success, some people still saw her as less than someone who didn't belong. But Danielle wasn't the type to let things slide, especially not when the incident had the potential to impact not only her dignity, but also her professional future. Her company, CloudSync Innovations, was in the final stages of sealing a $600 million deal with a leading global airline. Ironically, the very airline she was flying with. She was on her way to Los Angeles to finalize the merger, a deal that would make her company the largest female-led, black-owned tech firm in aviation history. This wasn't just any business trip. This was a career-defining moment. Yet here she was, in the middle of what could only be described as a public humiliation on a plane. After the attendant made no effort to resolve the situation, Danielle calmly recorded the interaction on her phone, deciding that the world needed to see how people like her were treated, despite their achievements. She kept her composure, but inside, a storm was brewing. What was meant to be a flight to seal her future was now turning into a painful reminder of the biases she had fought so hard to overcome. By the time the plane landed, Danielle's decision had already been made. She would cancel the deal, walk away from the airline, and find a partner who respected her not just as a businesswoman, but as a person. And when she walked into the meeting in Los Angeles, she made it clear she was done. The deal was off. The CEO of the airline's parent company tried to talk her out of it, apologizing and offering to make things right. But Danielle stood firm. "This isn't about one employee," she explained, showing him the video of the incident. It's about a company culture that allowed this to happen. If I can't trust your company to treat me with basic respect, how can I trust you with my business? The next day, headlines exploded. Tech CEO cancels $600 million deal after racist airline incident filled news feeds across the world. People rallied behind Danielle's decision, with social media flooding with support for her courage. What happened on that plane wasn't just a story about one person being treated unfairly. It was a wake-up call for corporations everywhere about the power of respect, inclusivity, and diversity. Danielle didn't just walk away from a deal. She took a stand, and in doing so, she paved the way for future generations of Black women in business. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories of strength, resilience, and real-life lessons. What no one on that plane knew was that Danielle Mitchell wasn't just another passenger. She was a woman on the verge of changing history. She was on her way to Los Angeles to finalize a $600 million tech acquisition with the very airline she was flying with. Danielle wasn't just any businesswoman. She was the CEO of CloudSync Innovations, a company that had spent 8 months negotiating a deal that, if successful, would make it the largest female-led, Black-owned tech acquisition in aviation history. This deal had the potential to set a new precedent for diversity and innovation in an industry that had long been dominated by white men. Yet none of that seemed to matter to Susan, the flight attendant who, despite Danielle's clear first-class ticket, insisted she move to economy. With an air of superiority, Susan went so far as to threaten to call security to remove Danielle from her rightful seat. Around them, other passengers began to take notice, their discomfort growing as they witnessed the blatant discrimination unfolding before them. One of them leaned in and whispered to a colleague, "Why is she being targeted?" It was a valid question. Why was a successful CEO on her way to close a historic deal being treated like this? Danielle, maintaining her composure despite the growing humiliation, calmly pulled out her phone and began recording the interaction. It wasn't about revenge or embarrassing Susan. It was about protecting herself, capturing evidence of what was happening just in case things escalated further. A second flight attendant soon arrived, reviewed Danielle's ticket, and confirmed that she indeed belonged in first class. Still, Susan offered no apology or acknowledgement of her mistake. Instead, she coldly told Danielle, "You can stay," as though she were granting a favor, but by then the damage was done. The emotional toll of the experience far outweighed any gesture of permission to remain in her seat. Danielle had already been subjected to public humiliation, singled out in front of other passengers. The atmosphere of the flight had shifted. What was supposed to be a simple, professional journey was now a painful reminder of how often Black professionals, especially women, are treated with disrespect and suspicion in spaces where they should be celebrated for their accomplishments. This wasn't just about a flight incident, it was about a lifetime of microaggressions and biases that Danielle had faced throughout her career. And in that moment, she realized that the issue wasn't with the seat she was occupying. It was with the company that allowed such behavior to gown-checked. Danielle didn't react publicly. She didn't raise her voice, didn't argue, and didn't make a scene. Instead, she quietly sat through the rest of the flight, appearing calm and composed as she made a few notes on her iPad and mentally prepared for the most important meeting of her career. The $600 million deal with the airline was supposed to be a historic achievement, a major milestone for her company, CloudSync Innovations. But inside, her mind was racing, processing what had just transpired. Danielle wasn't devastated because of the flight attendant's ignorant behavior. It wasn't the first time she'd been subjected to such disrespect. She had faced it countless times before. Black professionals constantly being questioned, doubted, and treated as though they didn't belong in spaces they rightfully occupied. For years, Danielle had brushed off these encounters and chalking them up to ignorance or unconscious bias. But this time felt different. It wasn't just a one-off incident, it was a stark reminder of the systemic challenges black professionals face daily. The humiliation on the plane was more than an isolated moment. It was part of a much larger pattern that Danielle had fought against her whole career. As the flight went on, Danielle couldn't shake the thought, if this is how your staff treats people like me, how can I trust your company with mine? The airline's values were suddenly crystal clear in her mind, values that weren't aligned with hers. If they could treat someone of her stature and success with such blatant disregard, what did that say about how they treated others, particularly marginalized communities? She realized that this wasn't just about her dignity, it was about her ability to partner with a company that shared her vision and values. When the plane touched down, Danielle made a decision that would send shockwaves through the business world. She wasn't just going to let this slide. She wasn't going to allow her company's legacy to be linked with a corporation that condoned such behavior, no matter the size of the deal. She walked into the meeting, and without hesitation, she cancelled the $600 million acquisition. Her voice was steady but firm as she told the CAO of the airline's parent company that she could no longer move forward with the deal. She explained the incident on the flight, showing him the video she'd recorded, and expressed how deeply disappointed she was by the lack of respect she had been shown. The decision was final. Danielle wasn't going to be part of a partnership that didn't respect her or her community. Her courage to walk away from such a monumental deal was not only a bold statement about her values, but it was also a powerful reminder to the world that success should never come at the cost of personal dignity and integrity. Just 2 hours after landing, Danielle walked into the sleek downtown Los Angeles skyscraper where she was supposed to finalize the deal. The CEO of the airline's parent company greeted her with a broad smile, unaware of the bombshell that was about to drop. He had been expecting a historic celebration, a moment to mark the beginning of a groundbreaking $600 million partnership. But instead of the handshake and congratulations he anticipated, Danielle simply shook his hand and said, "I'm cancelling the deal." The CEO blinked in disbelief, momentarily unable to process what she had just said. "Wait, what? Why?" he stammered, his face registering a mix of confusion and panic. Danielle didn't hesitate. She calmly showed him the video of the incident on the plane, the moment the flight attendant had singled her out, questioning her presence in first class, and ultimately treating her with blatant disrespect. She explained how, despite having the correct ticket, she had been humiliated and treated like a second-class citizen. Danielle spoke with controlled emotion, but the weight of her words was unmistakable. "That experience shattered my trust," she said. "If I can be treated like this by your staff, how can I trust your company to respect me, my values, or my business?" The executive, his face flushing with embarrassment, stammered again, "That's not who we are. We're deeply sorry. Please let us make this right." He reached out, clearly hoping to salvage the situation, but Danielle was unwavering. She locked eyes with him and responded firmly, "This isn't about one employee. It's about a culture. If someone like me, your future partner, can be humiliated without hesitation, what does that say about your values?" She paused for a moment to let her words sink in, before adding, "I can't be part of a company that allows this to happen. A partnership built on disrespect isn't something I can stand behind." As the news of Danielle's decision spread, the world took notice. The press caught wind of the cancelled deal within 24 hours, and social media exploded in support of her. The hashtag #OneIStandWithDanielle quickly began trending, a symbol of solidarity for her stand against discrimination. News outlets ran headlines like, "Tech CEO walks away from $600 million after racist airline incident," and "Flight attendants bias costs airline historic merger," sparking conversations across the globe. People praised Danielle for her courage to walk away from a deal that could have set her company on a path to even greater success. Her decision wasn't just about the financial loss, it was about something much deeper, standing up for dignity, respect, and the values that define true leadership. By taking a stand against systemic racism, Danielle showed the world that success should never come at the expense of one's integrity and self-worth. Danielle could have stayed quiet. She could have signed the deal, swallowed the insult, and moved on with her career. But instead, she made a choice that would forever change the course of her journey. She used her power, not just as a CEO, but as a leader, a woman, and a black professional, to take a stand. Her courage to walk away from the $600 million deal wasn't just about rejecting an offer. It was about refusing to accept disrespect and discrimination, no matter the cost. In the weeks that followed, her decision resonated beyond her own industry. Companies that prioritized diversity and inclusion reached out to Danielle, ones with strong track records in supporting people of color, particularly black women in tech. It wasn't long before Danielle secured a $720 million deal with a leading European airline, and this time she retained full control of the tech integration. This wasn't just a business win, it was a victory for her values, for inclusion, and for the integrity of her company, CloudSync Innovations. But it didn't stop there. Danielle's bold move sparked a ripple effect. Her story went viral, inspiring thousands of young black women in STEM fields who felt they had no voice in the face of systemic barriers. Their messages flooded Danielle's inbox. "You gave me hope." They saw her not just as a CEO, but as someone who had the courage to challenge a system that too often silenced them. Danielle's actions made them believe that they, too, could stand up for themselves and push back against injustice. Executives across the corporate world began to take a hard look at their own cultures. Were they truly inclusive? Were they fostering environments where everyone, regardless of race, gender, or background, could thrive? It was clear that Danielle's stand had forced many in positions of power to reevaluate how they treated their employees and customers. And within the airline industry, the pressure was on. Following the public outcry, airlines began implementing new training programs on implicit bias and customer dignity to ensure their staff treated all passengers with the respect they deserved, no matter their race, background, or appearance. As for Susan, the flight attendant who had been the catalyst for Danielle's decision, the fallout was swift and severe. After widespread public outcry and mounting pressure, the airline made the difficult choice to terminate her. They issued a formal apology to Danielle as well as to their global customer base, acknowledging the harm that had been done and promising to take steps toward greater inclusivity in their services. Danielle Mitchell didn't just lose a seat on a plane that day. She gained a platform, a voice for change that would echo far beyond the airline industry. Her story serves as a powerful reminder. Sometimes the real power isn't in how much money you make. It's in knowing when to walk away, in choosing your self-respect, your values, and your integrity over fleeting opportunities that don't align with who you are. If you believe stories like Danielle's deserve to be heard, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'd love to know, what would you have done in Danielle's place? Would you have walked away from the deal, or would you have taken the money and moved on? Let us know in the comments.